Welcome to my Stoic Circus, and today we're going to get right into the episode. Today we're going to talk about getting past what may mean it's your ego. That's right. We're going to talk about your ego today and why it's so important to discuss. So stay tuned here in just a minute as we get started. All right, let's get into today. We're definitely going to talk about some important things. I was really reviewing a lot of things about my own personal self and trying to get started with a lot of the things that I really want to overcome. And definitely obstacles came along over the weekend. And what those obstacles were many times issues about myself and things that I refused to address, and they escalated, right? But ego also, ego is something that gets involved in all that. And when we look at what ego does to us, um, many times it's more bad than good, but it is an intricate part of our personality. Ego is something that we have to really understand that when it takes place, it's something that you have to be able to address as it prevents or it disrupts. So, what is ego defined? Real quickly here, ego defined according to the Google dictionary says a person's sense of self-esteem and self-importance. But it also is similar to a psychoanalysis, the part of the mind that meditates between the conscious and unconscious and is responsible for the reality of testing a sense of personal identity. Now, why is that so important to a person? Well, to a person, yes, your ego can be a great thing, but it can be damaging by depending on the situations of how you're using it. If unchecked, it's unhealthy. It can make you overly sensitive or a failure to be able to address your issues and your problems. So, just to take a brief moment of break, greetings to Dominic. Good to see you, my friend. It's been a little bit. Hope you enjoyed your vacation over here live on Clubhouse. And the CPR guy, Alex, how you doing? Good to see you as well. So we're going to talk about, do you get in your own way? And how does it relate to ego? And to me, it relates a lot to ego, as I defined. It definitely brings you to a place where, say, like you're 50 years old like me, and you've learned a lot of things along the way. Does it prevent you from learning or listening to someone else who has something to provide or attending to someone's presence? It definitely has for me. Dominic, good morning. How you doing, sir? See if he's available. He may or may not be
I'm
available.
here, brother. I'm here, man. What's going on? I'm glad to be here. Uh, I'm doing. I was out in your neck of the woods, and I'm listening to you teach me about ego. And I read The Alchemist too.
Oh, you read The Alchemist, and that's awesome. That's also a great book to be able to look at your ego, because the first part of the book about Narcissus, about how Narcissus drowned in the lake of his own vanity of an image. And if you look at what happened there, it was like it was the lesson of the whole book. It was the summary of the whole book, but we had to tell the story of Diego, I believe, was the kid or the main character of the book. So before I really dive in deep to my topic, what did you think of The Alchemist?
I was fascinated by it. It touched me a lot. I hope to live that way. But that the idea of that personal legend that we all have it. That if I like sometimes I'll look up at the sky and I'll point up and I'll say, if you need me, big man, I'm here. I'm good. And to look up at that in the Alchemist when they basically talk about if you're living your personal legend, you're following your journey. Like let's say Jason's supposed to share stories and help people understand things, and if you're doing that and you're doing your best at it, well then you're doing all right. And there isn't like this pyramid somewhere. It's that's the journey. That's happiness.
Mhm.
That's peace. And so I that's what I got out of it. When you're on that journey and it's the right journey, that's the special place.
Well, what's interesting about that book, I've read it 27 times. I've listened to it 36 times. And every time I read it, there is something that pops out that I didn't catch before or that I didn't realize. And after reading it 27 times, it really taught me more about myself, like the different scenarios that Diego got himself into. When he trusted someone to take him to Egypt and he stole all his money, and then he got stuck with this guy selling crystals, but he managed to take the obstacle of being stuck with this guy to survive, you know, and then also having to deal with Mazaldek, who was a guy who was basically a king, hiding. He didn't have to show who he was, but Diego ended up revealing, or he ended up understanding who he was later and what was Umin and Thorin, the two stones. But what these things will tell you is they predicate themselves on obstacles in your way and why you're supposed to overcome them. Ego has a lot to do with that. And why is it so important? Because in that book especially, it talks about where your feelings are. They actually are when you face something difficult. And in this day and age, we hear the words hard, difficult, um, I don't know. These are all words that literally bring you to a complete stop or pause you to contemplate, to decide, to discern. And when you look at these things of how they take place and how they manifest in your life, what if you approach, say, like a new technology or a book and it looks like a little thick? Maybe it's 300 plus pages. Why would you want to read a book? You were told by a friend, oh, this is an amazing book, and they gave you something that hooked your attention. That's something I know you deal with, Dominic, that you deal with a lot of books. So what gets people to continue to read past the first couple chapters? A lot of times when I read books, the first two chapters are a big part of the foundation. However, they can be very dragging and daunting, and it drags your mind. It's like push through. And what the alchemist does is he what it did Pablo Coelho did for me was he kept on hooking my attention. The boy was mischievous. And why did that hook my attention? It was because he was talking to my inner self. What you know and what you think you know may not be adequate enough. And we have to realize that no matter what stage of the game you're at in your life, whether you're 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, no matter what age, you're going to elevate. And there are times where you recess. Why do we recess? Because it's the ego saying, I do not need to learn this again. I do not need to go back over this point in my life again. And that's where arrogance and doubt, they really pick up on that vibe. They literally dig in deep. And once they dig in deep and they burrow, then they grow roots. So it's kind of like a parasite, that digs into our mind, but also ego is a central part of our identity. It is a part about our self-esteem. It is a part of our sense of self-importance. When you look at how you attend people's problems, can you really assist them? When someone comes to me for a personal problem, I listen first. I don't want to offer advice first. I want to listen and see what is going on, and then ask myself, is this something I'm adequately able to attend? And that is difficult because you don't want to ignore your friend or your family or your child or your spouse. You don't want to ignore them. But there are times where you have to say, you know what? I'm not able to help you with this issue. This is a self searching thing that you need to develop. And once you understand, when you're fighting your obstacles, it's your own internal dialogue. That's where ego lives. And there's another book that I love that I picked up years ago. Ego is the Enemy by my favorite writer, Ryan Holiday. And he will say things like, we can't receive or we can't take or receive feedback if we're capable or uninterested in hearing from outside sources. We can't recognize opportunities or create them if instead we're seeing what is in front of us. We live inside our own fantasy. So, this is very important because what that's basically saying is your own illusions, your own arrogance, your own level of doubt that is like, hey, you're not moving me very much. So when we look at these things that really get in our way, it's like, did I decide because I just don't want to put in the work? Or did I decide because I've already been this issue? It's definitely taxed me to death. I understand, so on and so forth. So it's very important to let people know that it's like, hey, your obstacle is only temporary until you let it be temporary. I mean, if you want it to be there permanently, then that's your choice, but it's not really, it's up to you. And sometimes our own personal understanding, the best way I could describe it is, how do you approach something you don't know, right? Like, let's say like someone who talks about artificial intelligence. I don't know enough about it. I don't know enough. And I may argue the point, well, what does it belong in my life? Why should I take away my own personal responsibility of writing or creating for a machine to take a bunch of data from around the world, and at any given time, anything published on the net, to make a narrative for me? Is that really me writing the response? But my argument against that is, sometimes I use paragraph AI to reformulate my sentence, maybe give me a better perspective. It's my words, it reworded it for me, but gives me clarity. That's me allowing myself to learn from it. So, Dominic, out of curiosity, has there ever been a moment where you saw something or were dealing with something of an I don't know status, and you went for it? You just went past it. And is there a moment where it completely stopped you in your tracks, and you knew that it's like, it's only determined, or I mean, it's dependent on your willingness? Have you ever come across something like that?
I would think both. And I mean, as I scan quickly when you say that, hell yeah, there's been times where I said, well, I can't do that. And there's other times where I'll learn it, I'll figure it out, I'll jump into it. How hard can it be? And so specifically, I don't, I, I'm a publisher, and I probably barely know the difference between there, and there are. Pittsburgh has a movie business, and I have no right to be in the movie business, but I go drive cars and learn what's going on and write screenplays and things like that. I probably just jump in and think, okay, well, my thing is probably put in the work. And so I'm usually willing to start at zero or below zero and say, okay, well, I'll go shovel dirt or pick up the cigarette butts or drive the cars around for people. But I'm going to meet somebody. I'm going to learn how to use the walkie-talkie. I'm going to learn what the experts are doing, and then I'll be able to pivot from there. So that's my answer, my friend.
I like that answer for many different reasons. And the reason why that I like that is because now it highlights contrast, comparison, which actually they can be instruments of an ego killer. It can kill your opportunities by, your level of way, how you analyze something, a situation. Um, they will say that there's many times where it's mentioned throughout the ancient Stoics. They'll say that, ego is an enemy of success, because it's the assurance that that what you don't need to learn. Why do you need to go through a certain situation? It's adversity and how it takes on failure, and it can deceive in your feelings, right? Your feelings, which may say, like, say like you were playing baseball and you've been going through a strikeout streak. Instead of like thinking, okay, I'm being very critical on myself to understand, where is there a hole in my swing, or maybe I just need to take a break and take a rest for a few days, not deal with any of it, and then go back to it and having fun with it again. That's the biggest in baseball, basketball, football. Anytime a star athlete goes through a scenario where their talent does not shine. I remember watching the documentary of Steph Curry on Apple TV, and he talks about there was a streak where he could not hit a three. He's not the biggest basketball player, but there was a period of time last year in the 22 season where he was just hitting, brick after brick after brick, and he just couldn't, but he had to work on the muscle skills, the basics, to get right back to performing at the level that he was known for. And all through the documentary, he was literally talking about, his dad telling him, you want to go to the next level in college, then you're going to have to do something to redesign your shot. You're going to have to learn how to develop an upper muscle skill. You have a great connection to the, your fingers to the ball. But now we got to create muscle to put that ball in the net if you're willing. And that was his dad teaching him, a moment of ego. Are you willing to do this? And what did he do? It showed in the documentary that the kid would spend hours and hours and hours working that muscle memory. And what's interesting about that is that's about our experience, you know, to become great at anything or even good. I have to refer to Bruce Lee's analogy. I'm not afraid of the man who makes 10,000 kicks. I'm afraid of the man who makes 10,000 kicks a certain way. That basically says if you're not willing to do the work, then you have your results. You can't cash the check. You can't, claim that you're this or that. But if you narrow your focus and narrow out your distraction, this is an essential part of developing what is to take place. Then you have something that's tangible, and it may not come out perfect like somebody else, but you can get good at. Matter of fact, my friend Wendy yesterday, we were talking about just swimming, right? And I told her the instance where, you know, put in the work on swimming and you become a better swimmer. Because when she was telling me, hey, I have a hard time swimming, I'm not the strongest swimmer. And I said, it's only a matter of perception. You put the muscle memory, you know, in, then the belief comes. It exists. So it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's swimming or maybe you're writing or you want to become a lawyer, you want to become a doctor, and you're not the greatest student. Well, guess what? Work on the things that will make you a better student. Put the time in, put the reading, put the writing in, put the reflection. That's the essential part of what you do. And I have to refer to something that John Maxwell would say. He's like, it's not the part of just practice. It's the part of practice that gets you to reflect on your actions and your thoughts to learn, to adapt and overcome. So that is something that's very big in our daily lives. Can we actually get past our own obstacles without sacrificing ourselves? Well, yes and no. I feel you are going to have to sacrifice part of yourself for a period of time. People say, well, I don't want to waste time. Well, let's really call it for what it is. You don't want to waste the energy and the interest that will take to get past what you initially see. So when we look at our obstacles, you got to be more mindful of how the ego is kind of like the little devil on your right shoulder and the little angel on your, on the other shoulder. So no, me reverse that. Right shoulder angel, left shoulder the devil. You can pictate it whatever way you want. And one says, that might take up too much time and you're going to have to sacrifice some time with your loved ones. And then the angel says, well, it would probably be worth it because we'll be in a better position. And I think that a lot of us are in that position, deciding as technology comes in, the values of people are changing. And the people that want to learn the upgraded technology that's going to be living in our daily lives will do fine. Those who are willing. But those who are willing to say absolutely not, they may suffer. I don't know. I can't determine that. My crystal ball's been broke lately, but my magic 8 ball seems to play with my time. Signs point yes or no. It's funny that way. So when we look at our obstacles, ask yourself, why is it so important to be on the other side of that obstacle? What will it do for you? Are you looking at the problem of what you don't want to do? I think that's a big indication of how far and what you really want for success. Like I was talking to other friends about value, right? What really negates value? And I can tell you, I told another person, I said, your interest, write interest at the top of the page of a paper. Then below that, write three categories: people, work, and then it's a two-part, one category, interested and interesting. So one is living and one is past. How far do you want to take it? So when we look at these things, I've got to do the work that relates to people, that relates to an idea of going forward. So that's something that we cannot forget and we cannot overlook. Dominic, you care to like comment on any of those thought processes? Is there anything that you'd like to share personally about what I'm saying?
You're killing it, my friend. In my mind, I'm just a believer that everything good takes time. You know, before, just like we mentioned the alchemist to start off with, that before you get to wherever you want to go, there's going to be challenges. There's always going to be challenges. It isn't going to be easy. Sometimes with my children, I'll tell them like they'll start something and they won't be good at it at first, and I'll say, no shit. Like, of course you're not good at it. If you were good at it, everybody would do it. Like that's not how it works. So I'm right there with you, man, and just believe it's inch by inch. What would you call that? Incremental growth,
Yeah.
and then over time, like over a year, 2 years, like let's say us on Clubhouse, or I see you with your microphones, I see you with your nice backdrop, I see you with all this stuff you're creating. Well, of course it takes time, and then 5 years from now, you're going to have all that stuff times 10. You know, I was just with I was with an author yesterday. Last story, no, I was with an author yesterday, and we were talking about like building a strong foundation, and we were talking about an author who has a podcast and things like that, and now they're 100 episodes in. They have multiple books, and she says, "Oh, like Jay Shetty. I was watching Jay Shetty 5 years ago, and now he's blowing it up." And I'm like, "Yeah. Did you see that Jay Shetty is now interviewing the president of the United States? 5 years ago, he's just starting out, and now 5 years later, interviewing the president about mental health. I mean, that's the journey. It does not happen overnight. Go on, my friend."
Right. And I think a couple points. It's the mind deciding the obstacle before you've attended it. Like you look at the mountain, you're like, oh God, that thing's really big. I don't know if I can do it. But anyone who's hiked a mountain, climbed a mountain, when you're on the mountain, you can't always see the mountain. You can only see the trail or the pitch. You can, if you look down, you might see the height of where you've come from, or from ground to where you are now. But understanding that it takes, you know, it's the interest to elevate yourself, you know, having that vision of like, now you have the broad view, now I'm narrowing the view to overcome whatever it is. I remember my 15-year-old daughter, when we first started swimming, I pushed her quite a few times to get her past her initial decision. Like, I remember the first race she ever raced, it was a butterfly, which is probably one of the most difficult strokes for a little one to comprehend. I mean, you're flopping your arms and you're kicking your legs like a dolphin, and it's not natural for you to move that way. But you provide muscle memory, and then if you ever seen a butterfly stroke person who masters it well, it's like they're a human fish. They're floating like it's nothing. It looks easy. When mastery comes in play, yeah, it's because you did all the work to support that, to make it look good, to put the appearance of art into it. And we cannot forget that. And so I remember my daughter wanted to quit the first half lap, the first 25 meters. And there's all these people, and she just said, Daddy, I want to quit. Daddy, I want to quit. And it snapped in my head from all my own athletic journey. You turn around and I don't care what you got to do, but you got to push through and you swim back. And she was crying and bawling, and her mom and her grandfather were right behind me, like, go ahead and pull her out, let her quit. And I'm all, no, go do it. And I'm all, listen to me and trust me. You can do this. And she flopped and she didn't do it right, but then she finished. And she was the very last person to finish. And when she got out of the pool, I hugged her and I said, I'm proud of you. You did it no matter what. And people were just like, there was a whole bunch of parents around the pool and they were just cheering. And at first they thought I was the tyrant, you know, and hold on, an alarm came off. But I wasn't a tyrant. It's because me as her father, I believe this is something she's never done. So why not encourage them to do something to get past what they see is like, I just did something really hard. I don't know, but I finished. Now I have an interest to learn how to do it. So if you ever take your difficulty, whatever it is in your life, and you just go and attempt it, and then you find out it's really difficult, but now I might have an opportunity to find an interest of how to do it better and then how to put it to practice. When we look at this and look at that method, we practice over and over and over. Eventually, it does get easier, but nothing compensates for the period of now. It does not compensate for now. All that time that you have to permit yourself in the now to go through your difficulties. Like, for example, what's the number one difficulty in America? Financial wealth. You know, what predicates under that? Financial literacy. You know, are you thinking about how you save your money, how to keep it more than spend it? There's plenty of people that will prophesize, well, you got to learn how to be a better spender. You got to learn how to be a better investor. You got to learn how to do all these things and create investments for interests, the capital that work for you while you're sleeping. Those are all great in theory. But if you can't even manage a budget of how much can I spend on myself during the week or 2 weeks or a month till I get paid? Now, what if I held off that inclination to want to spend? Well, I don't want to spend on Burger King right now, $12, $15 for a meal. Maybe I can just make a sandwich and sacrifice that, that going out experience to, there was this Brazilian steakhouse that I'd really love to enjoy with my family. And if I save 20 of these $15 experiences, I will have more than enough to treat myself, my family, which is my beautiful lady and my 5-year-old and my 15-year-old, treat my girls to an experience that really builds me up, builds my self-esteem up, my confidence, and that sacrifice of delaying self-gratification in the now may lead to I'm not investing or spending time on people and things that are shortchanged. We have a difficult time in seeing past the now. Why is that? We're programmed right now to be that way. Look at the way that you attend your social media. Look at the way that you swipe up, right, down, sideways, whatever. Do you ever truly listen? To me, most of the, say, like social medias I've seen, especially in TikTok, I'm swiping a lot until something catches. And what do they call that? They call it doom scrolling. That's right, doom scrolling. And doom scrolling is mindless activity, but you're never focused on one thing. And that leads to people not being able to read books, really decide what can a book teach me. So just going back to The Alchemist, Dominic, what was something that The Alchemist taught you? What was one of the valuable lessons the book The Alchemist by Pablo Coelho really taught you and has you mindfully thinking? I'm just curious.
Wow. And I'm telling you, man, I just thought the whole thing was fascinating. But this idea that today, if you're following your passion, that today is as good of day, and how I want to clarify that if I die today, it'll be all right because I've given it my all. I gave it 100%. I was following my passion. I was, not that you want to, but you don't have to live in fear. And so it was a boy, like in the Alchemist. He's just a little boy, a young boy on a journey to find, his personal legend. And he's not afraid to cross the desert. He's not afraid when somebody puts a knife to him. He's not afraid of the giant snake. He's not afraid when he loses all his money. He just keeps on following his journey to see the pyramids.
What did you think about the part of the story where the guy told him you need to disappear like sand? And Diego's like, how in the hell am I going to do this? Like his life is he's under threat of these people going to kill him, and he has to do something he's never done before. He's terrified. He's afraid that he's going to die. But in the book, he ends up going on to figuring something out where he did exactly what he was asked and was able to go to the next moment. I thought that was like very, very transforming. That's what the lesson was, is to transform your thought of just your appearance. What you think you can't do, you won't do. But if you're curious enough, if you're interested enough, and you're interesting enough to find exactly what it would take of not what the words exactly say, but the illusion, mysticism, getting past what you see right now. And what was interesting in the book, he goes on to, I remember he was like so fascinated with this baker's daughter. And he's like, oh my God, this is like the pinnacle of the best woman I've ever seen as a sheep herder. And he's like there, and he imagines how this is going to be. And I'll shave the sheep in front of her with my masterful hand, and she'll be impressed. He's thinking back in that time, whatever it may be, that this was the answer of impression, that where now that creates a belief and trust. Like, that's a man. Ooh, that's a strong man. He not only can clothe me, but he can show that he's a profitable man. And he ends up later learning that there's someone else that he meets, and that he must complete his personal journey, his personal work, instead of being distracted. And then the woman in the end of the book tells him, like, look, I'll be here for you. Go on that journey, finish that work. And that's something to take note in, how we apply ourselves to our own life's journey, our own, what is your prime directive in your works, in your profession. I hear more people talking about jobs than being interested in their profession. Their profession means that you're kind of like the CEO. You can do many things. You could be a good reader. You could be good in the garden too at the same time, using all those masterful talents to really head your household, but also be a partner to somebody that really can embrace who you are, what you do, and you help them as they help you. Because then it goes to my self quote, nobody is self-made. Everyone has a self-interest, but we are all community built. And ego will tell you, no, it's all me. No, I didn't, no one helped me. No one stood out to me to really help me get ahead. But you forgot the assistance that you were given. Maybe it was direct or indirect. The people that were willing to work with you when you had nothing. Someone who had something was saying, "Oh, you know what? You have interest. Okay, you sound like maybe me when I was a younger self. I I can look now at what the appearance is and say, you know what? Why not? If I help you, you'll be an asset to me." And that's interesting because the ego will tell you that man, I just use that for a little bit. Man, I've already done all this. There's no reason for me to go back to the beginning. But the way I counter that is like even the masters of martial arts or boxing, they still go back to the basics. They still go back to holding yourself in the position to perform and without making practices of punches and kicks and blocks. The basic sense, then how do you deem yourself ready and worthy? Because life does not ask you to be ready. Life will demand that you be ready at any given time. It will demand it. And when you don't put enough practice into it and you just go, say, like limp for a while, you invite opportunity to defeat you. But if you're willing to practice what you've learned, what helps you keep emotionally stable and grounded, allows you to decide, reflect, willing to learn, even if it's in the beginning. I still learn from the beginning lessons of that I've adjusted. America's mom, how you doing? Good morning to you. I know you came in, super mom, into late, but welcome into the room. I just want to say hello also to Albert, Tristan, Jim, and Wissam. How you doing? Good to see you guys and lady. So you want I don't want to say
Yeah, I'm
guys
the
to a
only.
woman, but I do want to give your place. So
Well, thank you so much. I'm feeling honored to be the only woman holding it down for the women. But I came in because I was listening to a replay that you and Albert had and
mhm.
Julie about his first house room that he had. And so I feel like I'm been a part of the conversation, even though I'm just getting into this one. So
No,
just want to
that's a
say
perfect
hello and
point.
support.
That's a perfect point. Here is my point that people listen to replays. I have told people use the assets of your house to put your reels, your links, whatever, even your recordings, because I a lot of these rooms go are not on replays. But if you are not creating an opportunity for a replay to exist, how are people going to get curious more to know more about you? And what we talked about with Albert, first it was just him by himself, and then I joined in, and then Dragon, and then Julie, all my co-hosts from the Big Idea. They came in, they offered their nuggets, their time, and in the beginning, Albert was saying, "Well, I'm trying to do this," and then I just said, "No, you're doing it, man. There's no trying. Trying is like, okay, when you're going to Costco and picking up the sample, you know, of the juice or the cracker or the whatever the soup for you to go buy. That's trying." I was like, "Oh, I got that. I'm gonna try. I got the sample, but you're doing just fine." And that's the thing is that ego will tell you, I need to express that I'm just, you know, sampling this out. I don't know what's actually going to happen. But it's because you're willing to take efforts to do this, you're getting past your ego. Even if, and as time pressed on, Albert got way more comfortable in the conversation. He didn't want to leave it. It was his room. I just said, I can attend to your space. And you're an example right now where America's Supermom is saying, I listened to a replay. I listened to something. I'm interested. Now I'm in this new space. You're in a 72 space, and I'm interesting. It's interesting to be here. That was your comments. Hey, I'm here. That's showing your living action. You looked in the past. It gave you insight to go forward. And here we are. Albert's in the room. He's in the audience, and he may not be able to come up, but that's all right. But the point is we have to understand when something truly prevents us, or we're just preventing ourselves. That's the whole premise of this talk in this room. You got to be willing to dare to take the risk. And I feel that where we're at in the world, taking a risk is like a life threat. That And the phrases that follow it is, I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. Well, like a genie, your wish is my command. You don't have it. When do you want it? How do you want to execute it? What are you willing to work with and work for to gain it, and how will it be an asset? And that is a sign of a professional. A professional will say, well, if I got to go through the basics for 10 freaking hours, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. So that is the premise of the show. Be willing to be interested and interesting, to have interests to work for you. You're not you for them.
I love
Go ahead.
I love that. One thing that I would add to that, I heard a gentleman do a talk, and he said, one of the things for success is deciding if you're committed or are you interested. Because sometimes we'll be interested in things, but when you learn to be committed, you have a mindset that everything is going to work out and nothing is going to stop you. And I think that's so important, and back to the replays, I have a lot of replays that I save. I kind of go through the hallway. It's one of the things I use to maximize my time, but I make it a point to always try to listen to the people that support me. Whenever they're doing something, if I'm not able to join them in real time, that's to me a blessing to be able to have replays, because it's a part of those hours. We got to put those hours in for whatever it is that we're aspiring to achieve. And, it's the whole thing about being a success. Nobody is interested in getting themselves dirty and messy, right? Nobody sees the behind the scenes. They think of all the glamour, being in the front of the camera or in a room where there's hundreds of people or thousands. And it's really those moments that we take with intentional action to support people when nobody else is around. So I love what you shared, and I love you guys' rooms. Every time I come in here, I'm always getting something different. So
And I'm
glad to
glad
be
you
here.
said what you just said, because I can't tell you how many hours I've spent alone, whether in a social audio app like Clubhouse, by myself. I can't tell you, I've spent thousands of hours to get my voice to be able to enunciate the words and perform the pace and give myself space and grace to flow and make it look easy. I've had people say, how in the hell do this? When I get on the mic, I'm nervous and I'm fumbling around. I'm like, I get nervous too. I stutter. There's times where I do this. There are the phrases of ums and ahs in my recordings, but I'm not worried about them. I've gotten to an experience level. It's like, I understand, like you said, getting down and dirty. And I just got finished listening to David Goggins' Unfinished. And even though like his first book, Can't Hurt Me, was hard to swallow, just sound like an angry guy pissed off at the world. And it's like, you're fighting your own world for what? And it wasn't until I listened to Unfinished was I ready for his real message. When you get down and dirty, crawling in the mud, defying your body or maybe your own mind of security, that's where you need to work on the most. And how do we work on emotions? That is reflection, that is writing, that is reading, that is documenting moments of difficulty. Like whenever something's difficult, the first thing I will not say and will not come out of my mouth is saying it's hard. I'm like, no, I'm not going to even say it. Not going to mention. I'm not going to, which goes to a quote that by Marcus Aurelius would say in his meditations: do not let another person hear you complain. Not even your own thoughts, not even your own self be out there to do that. So with that being said, it's defying yourself and saying, I'm curious enough to overcome this moment, this deficiency of my own ability. And we've done it all along. Think about it, from age 5 to where you're aged at now. If I were to ask you, what have you learned from 5 to 50 or 55? What have you learned? What have you truly treasured and learned? And more than likely, you will be stumped. You'll be searching for something to really stand out and thinking the most. When I didn't ask for the most, I just asked, what'd you learn? See the play on words? What did you learn from 5 to 55? What did you learn that's really important to you? Now, if I said, give me the top 5 moments of your life that you learned from the best, now you might have a little bit more ground to work on, because now I played a semantical wordplay on your conscience. You can think of the most recent event. Maybe you had moments with your grandchild or your son, your daughter. Maybe you went on vacation to California and you had that sunset moment, riding a bike, playing basketball with a friend, that taught you the experience now is more important than the fortunes of and promise of tomorrow. And I was talking about this with Albert yesterday. It does not matter about what the future holds. It matters about the experiences you create, your reflection, your learning, your journey. So that's pretty much the premise and message of my message today. And I am going to bring the show to a close, because it's now 46 minutes into the hour. Usually I go for half, but it's been a great time to talk to all of you guys. Any closing thoughts that you guys would like to add before I end the room?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad I caught this, and I'll definitely listen to the replay. But
Absolutely.
are you on LinkedIn? Because I
I
have a
am not on
similar.
LinkedIn. I have a profile. I just honestly, I don't feel called to go to do LinkedIn yet. I'm still
Okay.
working on, like right now, this show is being produced live on Clubhouse and YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So my YouTube
Okay.
channel, 72 the Architect, has my Stoic Circus and my old show, Rise and Grind. So
Okay.
that's my learning board right there. That's the experience. That's the receipts. Putting in more
I
time
love that.
and this is for me, for the world, for my girls. When I go, my girls have a place to see their dad or hear their dad.
Amen.
You know, this is the written
Love
record.
that.
John Wiley said something very impressive the other day. Matter of fact, he said this yesterday in the Big Idea. He said that my goals are written in stone, but my actions are written in sand. And I was
Ooh.
blown away at that. And I'm like, now it makes me think, what is really a goal, right? And my
Isn't that awesome?
my actions when I make rooms on Clubhouse and YouTube and wherever else, this is written in the stand. This is just there. But when it's my goal to, do more and have more impacts, now I'm critically thinking. Because if you ever try to carve something in stone or wood, you can't mess up. It better be
That's right.
absolutely
Or,
clear, you know?
well, what I get out of that is that nobody can take it away. It
True.
can't be changed, right? So people can't deny what you have done because it's written and it can't be changed.
Right.
That's what I got out of that. That was
Yeah.
awesome.
It's very important that, you're a part of the goal crushing room. It's usually 5 o'clock my time, 5 a.m. and in
Hmm.
California, but it's like 8 a.m. in the East Coast. How many goals are mentioned without the stone mentality and sand?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you really think about that, that's pretty impressive. And sometimes you'd hear me come in and I would tell you, I don't have any goals.
Hmm.
Or you would hear me, I'm not ready to mention my goals. I want to keep them to myself, because I'm deciding,
Hmm.
is it something actionable that I have to persist no matter what gets in my way or what I have to deal with? Doesn't matter. Anyhow, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much it. So thank you all for coming in today. I appreciate everyone who's come in. If you want to listen to the replays, I will publish that in the my stoic my stoic circus on the replays. I will pin it at the top. You can look into my profile and you can see those recordings, but leave some comments if you've joined the house. Posts, subjects you're curious about, maybe I touched on something and you say, can you talk about that a little more? It's greatly appreciated. Also, my YouTube station is 72 The Architect, all one word. And you can keyword search my Stoic Circus Show and it'll show my episodes. Anyhow, I hope you all have a great day. We'll see you all next time on my Stoic Circus. I will be coming on live on Friday morning, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern, and Saturday. So until then, we'll see you guys all later. Have a great one.
Bye, everybody.